Family business is at the backbone of the United States economy. Family businesses contribute to 64% of the GDP in the United States. And there are 24.2 million family businesses in America. And just like in any business, there are problems with family business, and family can add a whole nother set of problems, a whole nother set of dynamics into running, growing, and scaling a business, which is already challenging for most business owners to do. And I know that a lot of business owners struggle with this as well. So let's just bring Brandon Dawson in to talk about tip number 1.
How to turn family meetings from heated power trips to productive brainstorms. How would you be an expert on any of this? We've never had heated power trips. You don't know anything about a heated power trip family meeting. I'm literally reading how to turn, if this doesn't give you imposter syndrome, nothing ever will. How to turn family meetings from heated power trips to productive. I don't remember a single time where you were on a power trip.
What about you?
I'm never on a power trip. What are you kidding?
You're right.
So that's imposter syndrome.
Rule number
How do you
1.
talk about something you don't know anything about?
Rule number 1, always agree. You're right.
Yeah, you know nothing about power trips. I've never seen you on one. Well, there was this one time that you were kind of doing it, but you've never been around it. We've never experienced it in our lives.
You're right.
I mean, how would you even know anything about power trips?
You're right. I agree. What would you know about it?
I know nothing about power trips. I mean, other than you're a very powerful woman, and you are a trip.
That's right. Okay, back to the YouTube video now. So all jokes aside, I wouldn't necessarily say that always agreeing with your family is the right thing to do, especially when there's a disagreement. It's likely that your issue isn't because everybody agrees, it's because there is an issue. Somebody views one thing this way and another person views the same thing in this other way. But if you really can start the conversation of trying to understand where the other person is coming from, it is going to be more successful than if you are just in the argument to be right. Of course you want to be right. There's nobody who loves being right more than yours truly. It's my favorite thing to do. And when he tells me I'm right, it's like the greatest thing he can say to me. But that's not the point. The point is to work through it and to come out on the other side closer, stronger, better, and more equipped to grow your business. Another thing that we do is we focus on what's the target. The argument or the discussion can feel emotional, it can feel heavy, it can feel like there are all of these other implications that you're working through and trying to navigate through. But the reality is when you can place this thing in the conversation to say, what is the target? What are we trying to achieve? It helps everybody laser focus onto what are we actually doing here? Where are we trying to land? And it helps you remove the emotion from the conversation. So whenever Brandon and I might disagree, or Brandon and his brother disagrees, or me and my brother disagree, we always go back to, okay, I understand that this is everybody's opinion, but what's the target? Oh yeah, this is the target. Okay, great. So whose perspective is going to get us closer to hitting the target? Again, this removes emotion from the conversation because the goal should be so clear and you should be able to know and center the conversation around, okay, we're here to do this one thing. What is that thing? Now let's figure out how to solve this problem. This is another trick that I use, and I cannot take credit for this because I learned this from the one and only Ryan Secco, who is the head of Cardone Capital. Ryan will say to Grant, we're on the same team. And it instantly diffuses the situation because when you're disagreeing or when there's a problem, it doesn't feel like you're on the same team. It feels like you're on the opposite team and you're fighting and you're trying to be right. It creates clarity that just allows you to move through whatever the difficult situation is with remembering that you are actually on the same team. You're not there to fight each other. You're there to fight with each other so that you can get to a target. Sometimes when you're really in the thick of it, when you're really trying to work through something, there's different layers of complexity. It's not just like you're fighting over one idea or one concept. There's layers and there's implications. I asked the question, what problem are we actually trying to solve? Now this is different than what the target is because the target should be around servicing customers. The target is like the bigger picture, it's the why. And when you can clarify the specific problem, and then the next problem, and then the next problem, it gives kind of this chronological way to move through difficult situations. Most of the time it's not black and white. There are these complexities and these layers, and when you can break them apart and separate them, it's likely that one person isn't right across all of the problems that are being discussed and all of the opinions that they have. It allows us to like bifurcate, okay, you won that one, you won this one, this is who's gonna take the responsibility for moving this thing forward. And it just like pulls what can feel very incestuous, a problem that can be just like gnarly and like all like bundled up, and it can pull the pieces apart. So once you've started to figure out the problems and really identifying and isolating what they are, this is the hard part, but it also becomes the easy part. If you can isolate the 8 things, you have the big target, you have the sub-problems, and you can isolate each one of them, who's going to be responsible at the end of the day for each of the 8 things with the result that you're choosing? Let's say he wants to create a new product, he's excited about the new product. I don't think it's the right time for the product. I think we should wait 6 months. If we're going to go with one of our solutions, one of us has to own and be accountable for the ultimate result. So with these individual problems and the solutions that are proposed and the choices that you move forward with, somebody has to hold the responsibility. We don't agree on a candidate that we're gonna hire. Brandon doesn't wanna hire the person, I do wanna hire the person. We move forward with hiring the person, so it's Natalie who's gonna be Natalie wrong. Natalie's dying on this hill. Brandon still supports the new hire, still helps set us up for success with the new hire. But if it turns out in 6 months from now that the new hire was the wrong person and they caused these problems and there's issues, okay, when we look back at Natalie's stats, Natalie goes down 1 and Brandon goes up 1. Brandon was more correct than I was, and he saw something that I didn't see. And this isn't to like make the other person wrong, it's to understand who's better in making decisions. And it holds the person accountable to the decision. So it doesn't become this group thing. It doesn't become this emotional conversation. It becomes somebody saying, okay, I'm gonna be the person that's gonna take the hill on this one. I'm still expecting that everybody else comes alongside me, supports me, even though it's not your idea. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But there are sometimes consequences for being wrong. And the consequence would be the next time we're making this decision, we're gonna go with somebody else's solution because you weren't right the last time. And that's okay, and you don't have to be emotional or charged about those things, because you are going to have to make a slew of decisions like this, and sometimes you're gonna be wrong. I've heard a lot of bad advice around navigating family and business and challenging conversations. And one thing that holds true to us and has been successful for other businesses that we work with is remembering that business actually is personal. This idea that business isn't personal is not real. It is very personal, especially when you're working with your family. And so in these moments, if you can refrain from name calling, from blaming, from over exaggerating, from throwing stuff in somebody's face that they might have made a bad decision years ago and holding their feet to the fire on it, if you can do all of those things in the opposite way, where you're just holding your tongue, even if you're emotional, where you just don't go and succumb to a level that you would never succumb to if it was somebody else. If it wasn't a family member, it's not likely that you're gonna like bring up some old bad decision that somebody made as like the justification to just stick it to them or to call them some name. You're not gonna do that to any other team member. So remember that business is personal, and the way that you conduct these heavier, harder conversations, it matters, and you can say things that do damage the relationship for a long time to come. And I never want him to think that I'm the type of person that he has to be careful around, or that he can't share certain fears, doubts, insecurities, failures with, because I'm gonna be somebody that in a moment where it's tense, I'm gonna throw that in his face. I wouldn't want that for anybody else in my environment. I wouldn't want somebody else's spouse or family member to do that to them. And so trying to operate in the moment as the best version of yourself, not as using the family card as it being a pass for bad behavior, is something that is an incredibly successful action that will set the relationship up for success in the long term. With that, I am super curious to know in the comments, what are your tricks? What are your hacks for when it gets difficult in family business? or just difficult in general. How do you engage? How do you communicate? Is there something that you say? Is there a question that you ask? Is there a thing that you do to make the situation better? Let me know in the comments right now, right down there. And also do not forget to subscribe. Lots more content around family business, the challenge in family business, so you are not going to want to miss out. Hit that subscription button.